Welcome to another Fintal for Equity Release Professionals video. This video looks at entering the information, answering the questions for the benefits section of Fintal. So let's enter a new case into Fintal. Very simple. Click on Case and choose New. If you'd rather use the keyboard, then Ctrl+N will start a new case. Here's a case reference. I'll just enter a simple description. You can use whatever format you want to. It'll then appear in the name of the case when it's saved, so it makes it easier for you to restore and reload it. If I wanted to put some case notes in, I just click on the button here and a window opens up, and I've got enough space to enter as many case notes as I want to. If you save it and reload the case, you have the option to add or edit the text, of course, here anytime you want to. I'm just clicking Next to go on to the next screen. I configured my system to allow me to press the return key as well if I want to. We need to know where the case applies, because for council tax reduction there are now different rules depending upon where you live in the country. There are national sets of regulations that apply to Scotland and Wales. There's a rate rebate system that applies in Northern Ireland. But in England there are different rules for each local authority area. So if I choose England as being the area, the country that I want to use, then the next question will ask me in which English council is the household located. Now I set up my default value in the configuration, if you remember the video there. But I can choose it, and it will use that if I go on. But I can choose at any time to change it depending upon which area my client is living in. So I'll switch this one to Blackpool. Tax credits calculation. There are some complicated rules for tax credits, which is being gradually replaced by universal credit. Depending upon how long you've been working and where you are. If somebody is just started work, then you might want to choose the major earnings change in this year. If they are not working at all, then choose the stable basis, or you could choose to use the tax credits that are being received if somebody's already being paid them. Marital status of the client. Well, clearly you can be single, married and living together. If you're married and separated, then you should put single in as the choice. Living together as another sex, or civil partner, or married, or living together are the options. I'll put a single person in here so that we can make an easy demonstration. That means that we'll skip all the questions that would come up about the partner and their health conditions and their income and other details. The program is very good at being intelligent in devising the dialogue, so that it tries to suppress any questions that it knows aren't relevant, while making sure that it asks all the questions that could be relevant, really however unlikely they are. You'll notice also at this stage that the progress bar started moving. We'll see that from time to time jump depending upon the answers that we enter as it goes past a set of questions that is decided are no longer relevant. And at any point I can put in further details to every question, which will be useful in many circumstances. Date of birth. We need to know the date of birth of people involved in the case, because you may be using the system at a variety of times during the course of the case, and obviously we need to be able to calculate what the age is on the particular day you're using it. So I will put in somebody who's going to be of pensionable age, so I'll just put in somebody in 1951. I can use the little up and down keys here to change the area that I've selected, so to change the month, or I can do a text entry on it instead. At any time I can use the back key to go back to the previous question. As you can see there, single. Makes it easy to amend if you realise that you've made a mistake as you're going through the program. Back onto the date of birth. Because I've gone forward into that, I need to reset the date again, so back to 1951, and my note. If I'd gone on to the next question, then those answers would be frozen there, and I can go backwards and forwards and they won't change. We need to know the gender of the client for some cases, so I'll leave that at male. If there were any children living with the client, then we would answer that yes, and for the purposes of the demonstration I'll put a child in, so we have a single parent case being looked at. Is the client sick or disabled in any way? This is a very broad question designed to decide whether we can skip past the more detailed questions about health and disability. If I press the help key, we'll see that an answer pops up that explains that. You can see that the help points out this is a very crude filter to use only to enable you to skip past the disability and sickness questions if you're confident that they don't apply. I've said no, and so it will jump past the whole sequence of questions later on. Here's a question about whether the person that you're working with is receiving or treated as receiving carer's allowance. There are some cases where somebody is looking after somebody who is disabled, where they don't receive the carer's allowance but they're treated as doing so, and that gives them the right to certain extra amounts of benefit. And again, we have a quick look at the help screen. We'll explain that. You can see this is a more detailed help screen. Some screens actually have subsidiary screens that you can click through to for even more detail. It tells you what the rules are, and if you need to, where to find them in the law, in this case in the income support regulations. In this case we say it's not relevant, so we'll move on to the next question. Non-dependents, these are people very typically adult children or parents who've moved back to live with their family. Everybody that lives in the household who isn't a member of the immediate dependents of the person claiming benefits and isn't there on a commercial basis like a boarder or a subtenant. We'll say no to that. Capital and savings, very broad assessment here, and the help screen would help you to determine what the capital and savings were and how to value them. I'll say that in this particular case this person has no savings or capital at all. We said there were children earlier on, so it needs to know which number there are. I'll give one child in here, and again we need to know the date of birth, and I'll give them a 10-year-old child. The child isn't blind, the child isn't disabled, so I can just accept the default answers in there. Is the person working? Well, we'll say no, they've stopped working, so I'll just click next to that. And you may have noticed that the progress bar made a big jump then. We've gone past all the questions about earnings and national insurance and tax and so forth. Coming on now to income from benefits, and these are all benefits, income that have special rules applying to them. Say nothing for sick pay or maternity allowance or war widow's pension. They're not getting guardian's allowance for looking after an orphan, and the person isn't getting any maintenance income either. Maintenance income in respect of children, nothing being paid there. That has a different rule applying to it. Gross income from state pensions, or we'll say they get a partial new state pension, so I'll say that they're getting £140 a week. Whenever we're talking about sums of money, we can put it in weekly, four-weekly, monthly, quarterly or annually just by choosing from the pop-up there, and it will convert it all to the sum it uses internally. Any occupational pensions, we'll say they don't, and they haven't got any private pension either. Other income from investments, property or foreign interests, we'll say nothing applies there. Then we come on to taxable assessable income. The program tries to calculate the overall amount of tax that's due, so we need to separate out the kinds of income that people have which is taxable and the kind which isn't. If I put in simply £10 a week of taxable income here and go on again, we'll see that we now get another question of type 2 of taxable income. I'll leave that at 0, and it then jumps on to the next section. It will go round and round as long as you have elements to put in there. This is for untaxable income, and I'll leave that at 0, so we'll just go straight on to the next question. We're not contributing to students in education, so we leave that at 0. There are no deductions for tax credit purposes. The help file would display those if there were. I'll leave that at 0. We come on to accommodation type. In Fintal we sensibly default it to owner-occupier, but if you're using the program for any other kind of case, well, you can see that we have a wide range of housing types: tenants, boarders, students, non-householders, crown tenants, and so on. Leave it owner-occupier. Are they making any mortgage payments? We will say no. Do they have any ground rent? We'll say no. Do they have any eligible service charges on long leases? Again, we'll say no. Are there any subtenants on commercial borders? Well, we'll say no, there are no borders, there are no subtenancies. We'll come on to council tax. We need to know which band it is, because a lot of local authorities base their calculation around the band of council tax. I'm not sure whether Blackpool does or not, but we need to ask the question. How much is their council tax liability? Well, I'll put in an average sort of sum of £1,500 a year. Important to remember that this is after any discounts they've got that's been billed, so that £1,500 would be after a single person discount had been applied to the council tax bill. How many people are liable for council tax? There are complicated rules about who is liable to pay and whether they are at all visible to the council tax system. The help file will give you full details on this, but normally it would be very unlikely for these to be other than this the default values. If you're a single parent and you were getting benefits before 1998, then there are some preserved rights that you may have, so this question is asking about those. And the next one is asking the same thing for housing benefit purposes. Okay, and that's the end of the question sequence. And what will now appear, if I click on OK, is the summary of the entitlement. And we'll look at that in another video. Thank you for watching this Fintal video. Don't forget to watch the others in the series, give you the information about how to use the program.